Hello and welcome to a very different Big Finish video. Yes, today I'll be looking at the Night of the Fendahl, or as some people called it, Night of the Gwendahl. Yeah, because it's got Gwen and the Fendahl and the Fendalines. How very exciting. Now this is my first ever Torchwood release I've ever listened to. There's been Torchwood releases in the past what I've been very interested in getting, but I just never got around to getting them because obviously other things cropped up. I would have liked to have got Believe and Last Beacon really interest me. So I thought I'd get basically Torchwood with Doctor Who monsters, which I think is a fantastic idea because obviously they're taking monsters what we all know and love. Hopefully, I love them. I love the monsters what they've picked, and basically putting a Torchwood spin on them. So they're not going to be grounded to the Doctor Who safety net. We're going to see these monsters in a completely different light. We're going to see them more adult, more gruesome, more horrific, and that's quite exciting. And when they say Torchwood is for, you know, more older listeners, they aren't lying, because this, oh boy, this is definitely an audio where you're just like, yeah, that was a bit much. If you're a young viewer watching this and you're interested in getting this story, don't. You might want to wait a few years because, you know, the cover might intrigue you because it's like, oh, Gwen and the Fendaline, how exciting. There's a reason why it says Torchwood contains adult material and may not be suitable for younger listeners. So yeah, this story, I'm just going to say this flat out now. If you're a young listener and you're wanting to get this, don't, because the themes what are in this story are honestly vile and gruesome, and that's not a bad thing because that's what the story's trying to do. So without further ado, let's get on to the presentation for this release, and then we'll go on to my thoughts on.
So taking a look at the cover art, so we have the priory background of the crypt, then we have Gwen as the Fendahl core, then we have obviously a Fendaline, then Torchwood Night of the Fendahl by Tim Foley.
And the side of the release there, because it is number 25 in the Torchwood monthly
and
series.
the back of the release there, so if you want to know more about the story, do feel free to pause. And the total running time being 54 minutes for this release. So taking a look at the leaflet, so if we open it up, we have production credits there, and then we have the cast photos of the people involved within this story, and then we have the cast list there.
So where to begin with this story? Well, it definitely is Torchwood, and I have to say, I really enjoyed it. When they say Torchwood isn't suitable for young listeners, they aren't lying, because this audio is dark, it's twisted, has a wonderful sinister atmosphere, which really fits the horror tone of the story. And this story really pushes and tests you as it's constantly trying to make you feel uncomfortable. And there are moments where I genuinely felt uncomfortable listening to this, especially towards the end of the story involving Marco and the characters. The characters are absolutely vile. There is no redemption for them. So Tim Foley really achieves what he sets out to do with the story. It's basically Image of the Fendahl, but more adult, essentially being a morality tale with men taking advantage of women. We basically have these filmmakers basically making a film out of Image of the Fendahl to make a snuff film, with them filming all these girls' deaths by actually sacrificing them to make up the number 13, with Gwen being the final victim. And the revelation about these girls really shows that human life means nothing to them. So they are just a real cold bunch of characters, with a character called Phil, you know, constantly going to Gwen, look, it's not too late, you know, you're different to the other girls, you have something to live for. But the twist involving his character, again, is vile, as you basically have the Fendahl revealing their dark past. So in a way, the Fendahl is sort of acts as a force of good when it's sort of taking revenge on these characters. So speaking of Fendahl, let's talk about the Fendahl and the Fendalines. Well, they work incredibly well within this story. The way they're described, you know, the worms of death, the embodiment of death, all that kind of lovely stuff, what it could be a classic Doctor Who story, you know, of death, all that kind of stuff. So we do have some gruesome moments within this story of people transforming to become Fendalines. It's just gruesome. The sound design for that is great. You just say like skin popping and oh, it's just really vile. I think that's the best word to describe this story. It's just utter vile. And the idea of feeding the Fendahl and the Fendalines is cracking. And we do have some nice bits of humour to try and lighten up the story so it's not completely vile and horrible. You know, especially when they're trying to reveal the Fendahl's name. And there's a line saying, all good horror movies have organ music. And the build-up is fantastic. And this is one of the strongest things about this story, I feel, is sort of the build-up to the stroke of midnight, that all the characters are getting tetchy, but you know, this has to be done at the stroke of midnight. So it is a great build-up to obviously the reveal of the Fendahl core, and obviously the Fendalines are getting ever so closer. One final thing before I talk about the characters is the music. Blair Mowat really has played homage to Dudley Simpson, as the music within this really does have that 1970s style Doctor Who music, which I think is a really nice touch, and it makes it feel even more authentic to Image of the Fendahl, because this story, like I said, really does play homage to the original but puts it in more of an adult context. And moving on to characters now, so we have Gwen, played by Eve Miles. What a wonderful performance, with it showing how versatile Eve Miles is as a performer, as you have this very layered performance of her being totally out of it, you know, constantly going, I'm your victim, and at times that does feel quite eerie. And what I love is we see this story linked back to the Unquiet Dead with the whole rift thing, and it going, you know, some say my family have the sight, and there are moments where she's quite flirty, and by the end of it she's quite a cold character, and rightfully so. And we have this fantastic speech about the everlasting night. Phil, played by Bradley Freegard, great performance. Well, you think that he's a good guy with him trying to help Gwen, and you know, he's trying to figure her out, you know, what type of character she is. And as the story progresses, he becomes more uncomfortable with what's going on, and you just wonder how on earth did he end up here. But obviously the revelation at the end of the story involving this character is, again, quite violent. Derek, played by Gavin Swift. Oh boy, what a slimy character. So bravo to Gavin Swift. He just does a fantastic performance, because he's just incredibly creepy, and there is, you know, he becomes quite aggressive if he doesn't get his way, and he just has this kind of sinister feel to him, and he's just overall a very slimy character. So yeah, bravo to Gavin Swift for bringing this horrible character to life. He's just absolutely horrible. He's just really slimy. So what are my concluding thoughts on Night of the Fendahl? Well, I think that this is a great way to introduce the Torchwood and the monsters, because this story is very much a homage to the original in the form of Image of the Fendahl, whether it be the music and actually the story basically being Image of the Fendahl, and basically using the subtext from the 1970s story and putting it into a modern day concept, with the themes what featured within that story still being relevant to this day. And obviously Tim Foley's kind of put it in a bit of a Doctor Who spin, and obviously putting it in a Doctor Who spin, it kind of makes it feel a bit lighter to digest instead of it being this very heavy topic. So, you know, congratulations to Tim Foley doing that. Like I said, the music again plays homage to Image of the Fendahl, having that very 1970s feel, and obviously the jokes which really do sort of help lighten this story up. The Fendahl and the Fendaline, I think, are brilliantly imagined and recaptured within this story. The sound design, like I said, is fantastic for them, and the way they're built up is fantastic, and the atmosphere is quite electric. It's very horror, you know, very classic horror. You know, you've got thunder and lightning, the rain hammering down. It just has that traditional horror feel, which really does suit this story, because Image of the Fendahl, you know, wouldn't be out of place in, you know, the Philip Hinchcliffe era. It kind of feels like a bit of a story what should have been part of that era, but it's in the Graham Williams era. So that's why, for me, Image of the Fendahl is a story what stands out in the latter half of the Tom Baker era, and I feel like it's a very good story. And Chris Boucher, underrated writer. But back to Night of the Fendahl, I think that it's great. I think Eve Miles does a fantastic job, and I feel Tim Foley really achieves with what he set out to do, to make you feel uncomfortable. It's a story what pushes you. It is a tale of morality. You know, it really tests your morals. It is a story what just constantly going, are you uncomfortable yet? You're not? Okay, let's ramp it up a bit more. It's a story what just keeps on finding ways to make you feel uncomfortable, whether it be with the characters, the revelations of it. It's just a story what doesn't shy away from the horror, and I feel like this is what it should be. It's not a story just going, this is Torchwood with a Doctor Who monster. It's going, okay, this is a Doctor Who monster, but you're going to see it under a Torchwood microscope, and I think that it works incredibly well. So I'm going to give this story a 9 out of 10. I will say I did enjoy this story on re-listen, probably because listening to it the first time I was like, oh, this is a bit heavy, and probably getting used to the Torchwood format, because obviously this is my first Torchwood audio, so it could be down to those two factors, me getting used to the Torchwood format, and obviously being on edge with this story, because it is a story, like I said, what kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. There are moments, like I said, what I generally did feel quite uncomfortable, especially towards the end of the story. So yeah, I'm going to give this story a 9 out of 10. I think that this is a great way of doing Torchwood and a Doctor Who monster, and I'm quite excited to see the 8th Doctor and Lucy story with the Fendahl and the Fendalines. I don't think it's going to be the same sort of gruesome and horrible standard what this audio is, but yeah, if you're a young viewer and you want to get this release, don't get it, because it's definitely not for young listeners. But if you're a Torchwood fan, you'll probably get more of a kick out of this, because it does reference a few things to do with the actual series. Foley achieved what he wanted to set out to, you know, do a reimagining of Image of the Fendahl, and it really pays off, in my opinion. I think that it is a great audio what honours the original story, but puts it in a completely new light, which I think is a very good way of doing it.
So yeah, that concludes this review. I hope you have enjoyed it. So thank you very much for watching this review. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next Big Finish review, whatever that will be. It'll probably be the 4th Doctor comic adaptations or the 4th Doctor Series 8 reviews. I'll kick them off. So it's going to be either 4th Doctor related stuff or the Macra Terror. Yeah, something a bit lighter and a bit more fluffy within this story. Yeah, because oh boy, this is a grim audio. So hopefully we'll be reviewing something a lot more fun and a bit more light-hearted than Night of the Fendahl next. So yeah, this will be the start of my Torchwood Doctor Who monster things. I'm hopefully going to try and review, you know, the next one, which is obviously Jo Jones and Captain Jack, and it being the Green Death, which is one of my favourite stories of all time. So I'm quite excited for that, and obviously I'll review the Margaret Slevine story and obviously the Auton story with Reese. So you'll have those Torchwood reviews coming up next. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this bit of a different video of me reviewing Torchwood, and hopefully you'll stick around to see the other Torchwood reviews what I'll do in the future. So yeah, like I said, we'll be reviewing hopefully something a lot more light-hearted in the next video, whether it be Macra Terror or something 4th Doctor, because boy, I need cheering up after listening to this. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this review. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm going to give Night of the Fendahl a 9 out of 10. A story what definitely plays homage to the original, but also pushes the Fendahl and Fendaline in a new direction, obviously using their classic horror state, you know, freezing people on the spot. It's just got some brilliant sound design, like I said. It is a wonderful story, what I definitely recommend to the older listener. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So thank you very much, and goodbye.